Okay, we're going to call the Utilities Commission meeting to order. The time is 7:30 p.m. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the Utilities Commission meeting of May 19th, 2014.
I move that we accept as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Let the record show that the minutes were unanimously approved. Cash on hand and in the banks for the Utilities Commission. Total cash on hand is $961,000, $961,806.63. We also have in our capital funds for water and sewer hookup, $77,150. Our next order of business for the Utilities Commission meeting is payment of the bills. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
I move we pay the Utilities Commission bills.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show that we unanimously approved paying the bills. And that brings us to Mr. Bob Sykes.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Just a couple things. We had the meters calibrated at the water plant and the wastewater plant, something we do every year to make sure that we're reading flows accurately in and out of the plants. It's also a requirement. The remaining patches that have not been paved over yet, because they were still fresh, will be getting paved over in the next week or two. I've already talked to Mr. Coppage, and he's going to be in the area. Next time he's in the area, we're going to take care of those patches. Our main lift pump at the water plant started making some very non-amusing noises, a grumbling. We took it apart and inspected it. The bearings were bad, and the impeller had some holes in it. We sent it off to the shop. They're still assessing that, and they're going to let me know when the parts will be available. We are running on our backup pumps, and those pumps can handle the load that we're under until around the end of July and August. They will still not allow the, if it should go that long, and it won't because we won't let it. If we have to, we'll just get a new pump instead of having that one rebuilt. But we're not talking about being in danger of losing water, just minor drops in pressure during peak times. The old pump was able to pump 1,500 gallons a minute. These two pumps combined do about 1,100 gallons a minute. So you would only notice it during peak flows in August, and we're going to have it done by then. Over Washington Park, we had a lift pump go bad at a wastewater pump station, but we had a spare. We put that spare in. We sent the other one off to the shop. We're getting it rebuilt. We're maintaining a spare for those pump stations over there because two of them use the same pumps. So 4 pumps in operation that are the same, it pays to keep a spare. You asked me to update you on the hospital at the meetings. There haven't been any significant changes. Did everyone get the email that I sent out after the last meeting? Mm-hmm. What's happening right now is the hospital has applied to MDE, revising the plan, reducing it to 4 wells instead of 6, and leaving the recovery well operating the entire time. What that means is that the possibility of anything moving downstream during that process is hydraulically slim to none. We know that that cone that they maintain at the hospital has kept stuff from moving off site. So with that pump operating, there's no worry that when they put the Ivy Sol in during this test pilot, that any of it is going to move off-site.
Good.
One thing that I had asked that didn't go over real well, and at this point doesn't matter, they were going to do the static, put it in, let it sit, and then pull it back out the next day. I said, well, if you're going to do that, let's dye the water. Take some dyed water before you put any chemical in it and put it in each one of the wells and see what we get out the next day. Well, since the recovery well is going to be running and the water is going to be moving constantly now, it doesn't really matter how that test would come out. So we're still waiting to hear a response from MDE in the hospital on whether that revised plan is accepted or not, or exactly what the revised plan is going to look like, because although we did have some input into it, we did not see that plan in its entirety before it was submitted to MDE. So we won't know what's in it until MDE sends back their response to it, approving or denying it. At that point, the hospital should be getting a hold of us because they have given us a commitment not to proceed unless we were on board. And that's where we're at right now, and that's all I have.
Just out of curiosity, why don't we get to see the report before it's submitted? They just don't think it's necessary to do that?
What we'd asked for was to have some input and to modify the original plan.
Right, now I understand that, and they, hopefully they took some of that information and put it in the plan.
Now, what we got back, is that we got with our consultant and we did up a letter and we sent it to the hospital and the guy gave us a response to our consultant that said, here's what we're incorporating into the revised plan. When I say we don't know what the revised plan is, we can assume that the only thing that changed in that revised plans are the things that we suggested. But we won't know that for a fact until we actually
So you
get a
don't
hold
know
of it.
whether to put one or all 10 or whatever you had in there.
We know the ones that they did put in included reducing from 6 wells to 4 wells, and leaving the recovery well in operation during that entire pilot test. And there are no plans right now to shut off that recovery well at any point. So it's running now.
That's
It'll be
important.
running when they do the IV-Sol injections, and there is no plan to shut it off. Now, as I see it, that would conclude the pilot study. They're going to put in the IV-Sol, the pump's going to continue running, they're going to get out the IV-Sol through that recovery well, in addition to whatever oil that IV-Sol should free up. If the pilot test is done at that point, then the discussion becomes, what do we do with the entire site? And that's where things get a lot more complicated.
And if MDE approves the plan, when do you anticipate this test taking place?
They're actually shooting for the end of July, August, I believe.
Okay.
Because of the groundwater table, they feel that that would be best.
It's low by then, right?
Well, by then, I believe it's actually higher. Because, remember, a lot of the groundwater is actually coming from 50, 100, 200 miles away. It takes that long for it to seep through the soils. And a lot of it is coming from over towards the Alleghenies. Now, on the Aquia Aquifer, it has a recharge zone that goes on the other side of the bay. So there's a large area there where we're collecting it in.
Except if we have a hurricane, a major.
Well,
Weather
actually,
event.
it doesn't change the saturation rate of the aquifer, even if you have hurricane after hurricane, because water can only soak into the ground at a given rate. So when you have these recharge zones, one thing that'll change that is if you have a saturated pond with sand at the bottom that feeds directly into an aquifer, then you'll see a larger recharge rate, but that usually runs off to an intermittent stream or some type of surface water.
Okay.
Because the groundwater hydraulics don't allow it to take but so much either. So even those ponds will overflow during a heavy rain.
Any other questions?
I have a different question.
Okay.
What has happened in the month since our last commission meeting about that interconnection application for potentially putting a solar array in?
I have not done anything with it.
I mean, I don't quite know whose job it
I
is,
think
but...
Bill,
Bill?
we should ask Bill.
I'll ask Bill.
I'll talk to Bill, and one of us will get it put in.
Okay.
If it's me, I'll get it put in this week. Well, I say that, but I don't know what's involved in that. So it may
Yeah.
require a lot of information that I'm going to have to collect that could push it further. but as soon as I can, I will get it put in.
I mean, it doesn't commit us to anything, but
No.
to see it move forward.
No, it just tells us what our limitations would
Right.
be.
Any other questions?
With, relating to potholes, the Radcliffe Creek Trailer Park, there are pretty extensive potholes towards the entrance. Would there be any way, now it's a private road, so it would be on the owner to get that paved, but he's been pretty unresponsive so far. Would it be at all possible to pave it and then bill the owner of that trailer park? Because, I mean, this has just gone on for simply too long now.
That would actually be a question for Bill, because I don't take care of the roads.
You're talking about the holes from utilities repairs, right? Not
Right,
regular
I'm talking
potholes.
about the cuts in the street. The road inside of there, I should not say anything about, because Bill knows what's written in the town code a lot better than I do about what the town's responsibilities and authorities are.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Sipes. Is there a motion to adjourn the Utilities Commission meeting?
Well, I had one question.
Okay.
What's reimbursed Emily's?
Emily sent us a check for 1.52, for one EDU, a full EDU. But the EDUs were paid when they originally built the shopping center. But Emily's has a salon, and a salon is not a single EDU like a lot of other businesses are. A salon is 1.5 EDUs. So even though 2 allocations had been paid previously, having the salon on one side and the tanning on the other side would have been 2.5 units.
Okay.
So they owed us the half a unit plus the meter installation fees.
Reimbursed them for
And we
what?
reimbursed them out of what the 8,000 they sent us. We only got half of an EDU and meter installation fees and reimbursed them the rest. I know it hurt me too.
I asked Pat about that one when I signed that check.
So, how much is it for, this is for 1.5, 3,250?
Not exactly. An EDU right now is 7,000, 3,500 water, 3,500 sewer, and they sent us a check for 8,000.
Okay.
1,500.
Or no, for 7,000. Out of that, we took the 3,500 plus 300 for installation fees, which brought it to 3,800. We would have refunded the remaining 3,200.
Okay.
Is it 3,250?
Okay, I just wondered.
Any other questions? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I think we did, didn't we?
No, because I had a question. I make a motion to adjourn the Utilities Commission meeting.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show that we unanimously agreed to adjourn the Utilities Commission meeting.
Thank you.
All right.
I want to stay for another hour.
Yeah. Right on cue.
Oh, he's making a big entrance tonight.
I thought the meeting might go on a little longer, I was just coming in today.
Okay, so we are going to convene the meeting of the mayor and council for June 16th, 2014. The time is 7:43 PM. Our first order of business are to approve the minutes of the mayor and council public hearing and the mayor and council meeting of June 2nd, 2014, the budget workshop of May 13th, 2014, and the Marina Charrette of May 28th, 2014.
I move that we approve all minutes presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Okay, let the record show that we unanimously approved the minutes. Cash on hand and in the bank. Our total cash on hand for unrestricted use is $1,250,986.26. We also have $200,000 in a restricted use due to the Washington College donation from the Armory transaction, bringing total funds on hand to $1,451,986.26. Our next order of business is the payment of the bills. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
Well, I have questions on that too.
Okay.
On June 16th, we paid Sharp Lawn and Tree $7,349.22 for tree maintenance.
No, that's for, I believe that's for all the different beds that they maintain in different park areas. It's the annual contracts for the parking lots behind the Dunkin' Donuts, the foot of Water Street, and one other.
You have contracts for this?
Always have, yeah.
Okay. And the step pools?
Step pools, I was going to bring that up and let you know, that's for reimbursement, but it's a big check out and hopefully a short wait back in.
From the grant.
So we immediately request reimbursement when that check goes out, but it has to be expended by the local jurisdiction first before the grants are replenished.
So how much was the total grant?
I think it was around $350,000.
So this is $206,000.
There's money.
So we've got $90,000.
There's over $90,000 left, and Case was checking with the agency as to how we could use those funds in Chestertown rather than going to some other jurisdiction. I don't know that that's a hope to hold on to, but it's a good idea.
It's a great idea.
They're similar. It has to meet these thresholds for projects, but
Does it have to be stormwater runoff?
yes.
So we
Well-
might need it down at the marina.
And we have a project running through Kent Street,
Yeah, we're fixing that right now,
And-
in-house, but
Washington Avenue, into here,
I've discussed those smaller projects with him, and if they meet it, I'll guarantee you he'll put in an application for it. But it's not like we can hold it for a year. It's got to be imminent. It's got to be planned out. It's got to have those engineering done and all, but
They're small projects and they involve residential
Well, if
property
there's-
that the property owners would be delighted.
well, we're about to fix the Kent Street one with our own man in stone that we've just visited the quarry and got a really great price on stone for lining that meandering bed through Elias and Holland.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
All the way down to the river?
No, just
Down to...
just till this straightens out. It bends in her backyard and bends again, and that's where we're lining the stone.
Okay. We're not going to the end of
Pardon?
Mill Street or anything like that?
The end of Mill Street,
The dead end?
the dead end.
This side of Mill?
North, no.
No. By that time, it's just a regular stream.
Okay. Well, it's worth looking into the backyards on Washington Avenue too.
It has to be engineered.
On the Mount Vernon side.
That would involve easements from all property owners, and engineering is just not ready for these funds.
All right. And then the irrigation in Fountain Park? Is that a repair?
The $600 is, it was a garden club request for a bed that does, we did the testing of all the, remember we were talking about this in a meeting that the garden club felt like, well, maybe the whole irrigation system should be replaced. So about 3 weeks ago, we all went out there and tested it and found that everything was working very well except for one corner.
Okay.
Wasn't serviced.
Okay.
And I think the garden club is very happy that Eastern Shore Irrigation was ready to get in there and fix that bed for a minimal cost, I think. So we are in 100% business.
Great.
All right.
That's good news. Okay. All right. That's, and we're moving ahead. That's all.
Yeah, the contracts for Sharp, if you all want to review them, they're pretty much annual thing. They haven't changed, but they take care of these areas that we've just found that we can't do all those. And the foot of High Street is a town and county sort of ownership thing, but we've always maintained the landscaping, and it floods, and it's just,
A mess.
it requires, and we lose plants.
Well, if we have a contract, then we know it's going to get done.
Absolutely, and the Sharp's been pretty good.
Okay.
Well, since we're asking some questions, what kind of door costs $994.50?
Missed that one.
The back door we always go through when someone comes in the front door that we don't want to see. I don't know, who's it
The
to?
police building had a door for $994.
Well, I think the man that can really answer how expensive a door can be is right back
I
there.
hope no one stole your door.
The majority, or a fair portion of that cost is the entry system, the combination lock part of it. It's a metal door and it was replaced because it was leaking water.
Which
and
vendor
it was,
is that?
just in terrible condition and they had to comply with the,
Good idea.
we had a modern function of the historic look, I guess.
Did you
What
have,
happened to the doors?
The prior, it's only one door, the prior door was just in terrible condition to the point that when it rained, we had puddles on the floor. So it was replaced, they replaced the frame and the door, but a fair portion of that cost was the entry, the coded number system that you push in, the keyless entry part.
Any other questions about the bills?
I move we pay the bills.
Is there a second? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show that after a long discussion, we agreed to pay the bills. Okay, police report. Chief Baker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
There's your overtime. I'd like to present the notes for our May 2014 Chestertown Police Department. And breaking down our hours, we had 50 hours, which were 4% with regard to administration. We had 48 hours, which was 4% in criminal investigation. Accident investigation were 7 hours, which is 1%. Vehicle patrol was 679 hours, yielding 60%. Foot patrol was 148, that was 13%. Training was 61 hours, 5%. Court was 10 hours, and that was 1%. And overtime was 214 hours, and that was 19% of our time. And I just passed around the overtime breakdown. We had 23 adult arrests that involved 87 separate charges broken down. That was 16 assaults, 14 CDS related, 12 armed robbery or conspiracy with armed robbery, 10 robbery, and let me point out that these are later charges related to the Domino's robbery and the Highs robbery. So that didn't just occur this month. These are months old, but we've actually charged the individual this month. We had 8 thefts, 6 ex parte, 3 each for other agency, firearm and a felony handgun violation is also related to that Domino's robbery. 2 each for disorderly, DWI, trespassing and alcohol, and 1 each for fail to obey, harassment, MDOP, and telephone misuse. No juvenile arrests this month. We had 3 civil citations. They were all 3 for alcohol. We had 9 Part 1 offenses, 4 were cleared by exception, by arrest, 2 by exception. We had 16 Part 2 offenses, and 14 were cleared by arrest, 2 were cleared by exception. 12 motor vehicle citations, 94 warnings, and 276 red speed violations. Our week broken down, or let me break down the wards first. Ward 1, we had a little less than 4% of our calls. Ward 2 was 51%. Ward 3 was 17%. Ward 4, 20%. Our busiest times, average for the month, were between 10 and 11 in the evening and between 7 and 8 in the morning. And then our busiest days were Friday and Saturday. Any questions?
Any questions for the chief?
Yeah, just a comment.
Yes, sir.
I want to congratulate you for foot patrol. We went from 4% last month to 13% this
great.
month.
Yes, sir.
I just wished everybody would listen to me as well.
Well, I appreciate that. If I might take the opportunity, We have a meeting scheduled tomorrow night at the church on Calvert Street, and that is 6:30. And the community, we told the community we would have a meeting. I believe you plan to attend, Mayor. So that's scheduled. If anybody could get the word out, I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
I took the opportunity to speak to the chief just before our meeting about a complaint I had from a resident in the first ward about vehicular noise at 4 o'clock in the morning consistently from the gentleman who distributes papers in town. I gather this has been an ongoing problem for a long time. There's nothing in our noise ordinance about vehicles. Is there a reason for that, Bill? or-
There's a level of ambient noise that's expected of vehicles by state law, so we don't mention them unless they make excessive noise.
It's a very hard, as the chief can tell you, law to enforce. They do it with DBs. They don't issue DB readings to police without meters and so
Yeah.
forth. And it's within a certain distance, and it's a very tough
But
thing.
as
It
I-
used to be they had glass packs, and you could climb underneath there and see that
Yeah.
it had a glass pack on it, and that was illegal.
It has to be calibrated and all that, so the decibel reading. But I did point out that we're familiar with that individual, and actually he has been addressed and seems just to be back to his noisy ways again. So we'll
Does he
deal
have
with
like
it in
a
a traffic
dual
route.
exhaust truck or
The
something?
chief mentioned it to me, and I said, I kind of like it because it lets me know, I get up very early in the morning.
Yeah, not everybody gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
It's a modification of his muffler system
Yeah.
there, so we catch him and require by inspection
Yeah.
ticket that he fixes it, and then he unfixed it.
Maybe we need to
again.
harass him enough that he doesn't.
In the wrong
fix it.
job, isn't he?
Yeah, man.
You know,
Used to be a
4
mechanic.
o'clock in the morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We didn't get to my house at 4:35.
Oh,
All right, Bill Ingersoll, Town Manager's Report is the next item on the agenda.
okay, just a few things. With the chief still here, I thought I'd mention that we were able to get speed bumps placed on Calvert Street
Oh,
and College Avenue. We also got a petition in between meetings. I remember Mr. Murray brought up that his block, 200 block of Calvert Street, would also like a speed bump. So I just want to tell the people who have called about that one, I think they're fairly low, actually, that everyone wants them painted yellow as soon as they go in, but it's oily, and they were too hot the first day. So you can't paint them for a little while. One lady said that she had a problem on Kent Street 10 years ago. She had to have her tie rods replaced, and I said, well, haven't you slowed down in the 10 years since you got the first one? But I will let people know, it's behind the library, the two up on the 400 block of Calvert Street, and the College Avenue one that the lady asked for.
Do we have any, like, temporary warning signs we can put out?
You know, I think enough time has probably gone by for us to try to
Paint
get
them
some
out.
yellow paint down on them.
Did the man from Hadaway Drive come in?
No, but I'm sure they will. Those things sort of spread, those
He
speed bumps
indicated he
spread.
was coming on the 2nd, I couldn't be here.
No,
No, he didn't come. He's been on the agenda
He's
twice.
waiting for me to come in. I
right.
asked him to get a petition, so maybe, you know, I've had this happen a couple times in my ward. People will want something like that. I said, well, you know, get a petition, check with your neighbors, because there's almost as many people who don't like
Yeah.
speed bumps, but probably more, than do like them, and particularly near their home, because when people go over top of them, they make a lot of noise.
Yeah, snowplow operators don't like it either. I mentioned earlier the reimbursement for the step pool conveyance has been put in, and you notice that the payment's been made. And there's an IT stakeholders meeting at Kent County this Thursday afternoon, June 19th. Anyone from the council wants to come, it's fine with me.
What are they talking about? I mean,
I can't tell you exactly. I think it was sort of initiated by maybe the request of other towns. I think that most of the glass that's going to be put up around, except for the final mile, is up.
okay.
I don't know if William wants to say anything about it. I don't really know. We were invited. They wanted a name of a representative. I threw mine in, but that was the day before yesterday.
I'm not aware of what that is.
Okay, well, it's from the IT department at the county, and I think what they want to do is just go over possibilities for the future. I don't know, the fiber optics is in a lot of places already, permanently, so, Sam, if you have time, you know,
This is Thursday.
Thursday, I'll
At
give,
the commissioners,
it's at the commissioner's hearing room, so
and what time?
I think it's 2:30, but let,
2:30.
I can get it to you
Would you?
exactly. Yep.
As somebody who's struggled with Verizon all this week and has had no internet service, I want to see something better.
Well, actually, something like Heron Point with 300 units in it would, to me, would be an excellent place to have hardwired with fiber. And the last mile is pretty important to us anyway, the final mile all over. It's our police department, our fire department, they should and could be, as other towns in this county have already been, hooked up to fiber.
Right now, there are no private citizens on fiber, correct?
Well, there are, but they're through Atlantic Broadband or...
Well, that's cable, that's not fiber optics.
Right.
Yeah, it is. They put in fiber first. Atlantic
Oh, really?
Broadband put in the
Okay.
first fiber here. So there is fiber, but that's, you know, you end up getting the TV and the phone, and some people have got the triple play, but it's not available everywhere either. So, and like in your community, I don't, because it's all underground, I don't think it's there. So, anyway, maybe we'll learn more on Thursday. We also got a letter from DNR, and kind of, it's odd, they sent the county acceptance letters to us and our letters to the county, but we got what we were hoping to get, the $200,000 for bulkhead repair. It follows our $40,000 engineering grant for the marina. So that one involves a match, but you know, I don't want to throw a wet blanket over a celebration right now, but $200,000 is really a godsend for the marina right now. And we'll work out where the match comes from later. It could come from unappropriated surplus. I don't want to spark the debate about how we're going to use the college funds, but
For bulkhead repair, this is
for bulkhead repair. It's meant to be matched with another $200,000 for a total $400,000.
But not for bulkhead improvement, like raising it, for example?
Yes.
Okay.
Repair, raising,
and...
we're on our way with engineering,
Okay.
so hopefully that'll set the level in the design phase. And the dredging thing, the word I get on the dredging is that we can get the amount that we asked for, and that's a 100% grant. We can get the amount we asked for, which was $600,000. All we have to do is prove to them we have a spoil site that we're going to use. And I know of 3 in Kent County, but I have to check the sizes based on the estimates of the cubic yards of spoils that were taken out.
There was only 600,000 for dredging,
That's how much we're going to get.
so we need $1 million.
No, the estimates on those plans are that we need $1 million. I'm not sure they're accurate. From what I understand from the state, just about every dredging project that comes in under what they budgeted. So those are just estimates from...
Well, you told me to ask Secretary Gill, so I asked him again last week. He also sent me to MDE about moving the bulkhead out a little bit, and then MDE sent me to somebody else, and I haven't been able to, I talked to Secretary Gill, I talked to the, Deputy Director of MDE, and the third person I was supposed to talk to wasn't there, so I'll give you the phone number to call. Then my question was, can we move it out a little bit?
And the advantage would be that we could construct it without interfering with the other?
To fill in, to move, this was one of the suggestions at the charrette, was to possibly move the bulkhead out, maybe a slip or two, and then fill it in.
Fill it in with the dredge spoils.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was at the charrette.
Yeah, but
I just didn't think that was feasible.
Well,
I
it
mean,
was worth asking.
it's
it's
usually
worth
they grant you a yard when you redo bulkhead. They give you enough space to drive new piles and put in the whalers and the whatever the boards that go vertical are called. Because it's impossible to do it without, sometimes you can't pull out the old. And that's what we did at the Wilmer Park, sheeting, the whalers and the sheeting. So anyway, it's great that you talked to those individuals. Did Secretary Gill give you extra money while you were there?
I invited him to come back again, and
Yeah.
I said, I'd love you to bring a check, and he said, how much do you want? And I said, $1 million.
Would hail.
Awesome. Well,
It's
every-
like,
Good job.
Don't
Every-
ask me if you don't
Keep
need
it up.
Every
Always ask
request
for more
helps.
than
But
you
anyway,
expect.
that's all the continuing good news on the marina. That's all I have. Oh, Leslie Raymond, I didn't have her on the agenda, but if she was coming, she's not going to. So
Okay.
that's for, I think, for a week, this weekend.
21st is the
Yeah.
GAR opening, right? Does
think that's
anybody
what she-
remember the time?
Okay, that brings me to the mayor's report, which is me. A couple of announcements. We have our third commercial district business forum with our C3 zoning area. Have we set out the invite?
Yes.
So the invitations have been sent out. That will be next Monday, June 23rd, 2014 at 7 o'clock here at Town Hall on the second floor. If you haven't been to the ones that we've had, our C1 had pretty low attendance, our C2 had amazing attendance, so we'll see what C3 brings. Shore Regional Health, the hospital, I've had numerous requests from residents in the community to try to get more public input or opportunities for the public to give the hospital input on their plans for this pilot test. And they have acquiesced to that request, and we have a public meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, June 25th at 7:30 here at Town Hall on the second floor. So anybody that's interested in coming and hearing what the hospital has to say, they will also then open the floor to the public for questions, is invited to attend. It's great to see. If you guys could help us spread the word on that, that would be fantastic.
It's not going to be just on the water problem they have up there. It's going to be questions in general.
It's going to be specific to the remediation plans for the spill.
Oh, it is?
It is, yes.
That's what I wanted.
Yes. Okay, so that's next Wednesday at 7:30 here at Town Hall. Okay, this is an issue that I was reminded last week by one of the former revitalization task force members that, to try to make a long story short, basically the revitalization task force was almost finished with their work when the FOIA requests created the sort of debacle that ended in the resignation of all the revitalization task force members. But prior to their dissolution, they had engaged Ayers St. Gross in an effort to put some of their concepts on paper with professionally made drawings. At one point, the council, and these are minutes from December 2nd, 2013, so this is prior to me taking office, I have here in the minutes that Mabel Mumford Potts moved to approve $8,000 to Ayers St. Gross with the understanding that the Maryland Department of Economic Development would provide matching funds, seconded by Jim Gatto and carried unanimously. So at one point, the council had agreed conditionally to allocate $8,000 towards what was anticipated to be about $16,000 of engineering work by Ayers St. Gross. And I think with that understanding, the task force went ahead with some preliminary work and ended up running up a tab of about $6,500 before the task force was dissolved. It also unfortunately happened before the Maryland Department of Economic Development could approve anything. And what ended up happening is that two of the members of the task force paid the $6,500 out of pocket. So the request that I'm going to make, and I mentioned this when I addressed this crisis, if you will, I suggested at the time that when we have people volunteering, putting in hundreds of hours of volunteer time for the town, and we shouldn't expect them to put in their own money for really anything. And I'm gonna request that we reimburse them the $6,500, tonight if we can. I know Marty's, yes, Marty's Actually, I have it right here in the minutes. Mr. Stetson said he thought the task force should not pay fees out of pocket. The town should pay half and Washington College should pay half. That's what you were on record.
You know, that task force allegedly was made up by citizens and by people from Washington College, but there wasn't one soul on their task force that didn't have a very close connection to Washington College. But yet we're paying the whole freight. And I don't, if it was a truly joint thing, what do they have, 6,500? Divide that in half and say, look, we're paying our half, go to the college and get your half.
Chris, you need to clarify that.
Okay.
Was the 6,500 paid for by the 4 people that were appointed by the former mayor?
No, that's a good question. I could tell you, can I name names? Is there?
Well, I
I don't know
know.
One of the tasks, the bill was paid for by 2 task force members, one of whom was a town representative and one of whom was a college appointee.
But we need to find out, because the college had gotten $8,000, half of it, from, where was it? Where,
They were applying to Maryland Department of
Bernadette
DBED.
Bowman was
Okay.
working with Deep.
And I want to also speak to the, you mentioned in your email that you would think it should come out of the Washington College $200,000 for the armory. The restriction on that money was done just because of that reason, because as soon as they give us the $200,000, they wanted to tell us how to spend it.
Understood.
And there was a couple of our council people, including myself, felt that, you know, if you're giving it to us, then it's our decision to do it, not your decision. So I'll speak to that part for it. And now we're going to get ready to do what should have been done probably in the first place, was to have these charrettes that we're paying $20,000 to study it all over again. But if they did $6,500 worth of work, let's see something for $6,500.
Yes, unfortunately, I was going to provide copies of a PowerPoint that Air St. Gross made, and they made one conceptual rendering of the waterfront, and unfortunately I got pulled out into, I basically came from a kayak trip directly to this meeting.
They did give us something.
We have stuff, and I meant to come and give you copies, and I'm
Did
sorry
they
that
do
I
the
didn't.
illustrations that are in the report as well?
Some of the illustrations in the PowerPoint, I think, made it into the report,
Yeah, I
and then
think
there's
so
a
too.
small version of this sort of larger conceptual drawing in
I'd
the
like to
report.
propose a hybrid solution
Okay.
for 2 reasons. One, I'd like to see us get this dealt with before the end of the fiscal year.
I couldn't agree more.
So what if the town reimbursed these 2 individuals, and then the town takes it up with the college to get half of it back? I mean, I agree with Chris full-heartedly that no individual should be out of pocket to that extent.
I agree with you, but I think it's got to be a fair
But I do
split.
think we
mean,
also
it's
have to
just
hold
not-
the
it's just
college's feet to the fire on
Again,
their
you know,
share.
I wasn't in favor of it in the first place. I just think we study some things sometimes to death. And at the same time they were talking about doing this, we were asking for a matching grant that we were going to pay $20,000. And they said, well, we might not get it. Well, we did get it, so it's cost us $20,000 to do. And they're having public meetings. I think that was the whole problem with this, and we didn't really. And I must say that it never occurred to me that it would end up with the debacle that we had.
Yes.
But I don't know anybody else knows, except Linda, of course, who attended all the meetings, what the heck went on in there, you know, except the day that I testified, and that's the only thing I know went on, so. It'd be
Well-
nice to find out just exactly what they did do for that.
We've read the report.
And
You have
again, I
task
said,
force report.
I think that when this new study's done, they're going to basically hear the same thing they heard, because you're going to have the same people come in and talk about it.
But that's a different issue from the payment that was made by 2 private citizens
Right.
on our behalf.
I say divide it in half, the town, I don't think any individual should have to pay it out of their pocket for doing volunteer work. But in the same token, I think we got to be fair about it. You know,
What do you think of Liz's possible solution that we foot the bill so that we can relieve these individuals, and then we go to the college to try to get them?
Because I see them going cap in hand to the college and trying to get, you know.
Yeah, I don't see that
Two
happening.
individuals, what, we're talking about $300 $2,250
It's gonna be hard
each.
for them, because they all had connections to Washington College in the first place, but that's where this should come from. I don't think we should pay the whole bill, because I'm not sure Washington College is gonna pay us back. Let's just pay $3,500 and,
What are the minutes
If
say
they
again
wanna-
from December?
why should they come to us for $6,500?
Because they,
Because of the mayor.
because they volunteered for us. So, on December 2nd, Mabel made a motion to approve $8,000 to be paid to Ayer St. Gross with the understanding, and this is important, that the Maryland Department of Economic Development would provide matching funds. It was seconded by Mr. Gatto and carried unanimously. So
So you were ready to pay 8,000 then, but you don't want to pay
It wasn't
65.
unanimous, bottom line.
it says carried unanimously. I don't know if you were maybe absent.
All right. Unless I was sick, it wasn't unanimous.
I say we just take this up as a lesson learned, follow
Right.
Liz's strategy, foot the $6,500 bill, and then pick it up with the college
It's the
later.
fact that this was a town group, fact that it was shared with the college, that got us into this problem in the first place. And I think we have to step up and help these two people out and then take the issue to the college.
Are you prepared to make a motion?
Yes, I move that we pay those two individuals and then seek reimbursement from the college for their share of the expense.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No,
All right, Marty. All right, thanks, guys. And I know that was a tough issue, and I agree that we should approach the college. Maybe we'll be speaking to you directly, Joe.
Joe
I don't-
said, when this came up before, he said that he felt that the $200,000 donated by the college, that this was something that could be covered by that. Did you not?
Yeah, I think, you know, the town was the one that obligated themselves to $8,000 without consultation with the college. Now the town is coming to the college
That's
after the
exactly
fact, and
right.
asking us to obligate
That's
for
what
a
it
portion, and I think the time for consultation with the college perhaps would have been when the council had its original vote. But having said that, you know, we're also at the end of the fiscal year, going to make the request to be trying to get into the college soon.
We'll need the invoices for this, I mean.
I have those too, and again,
right.
I was all ready to print all this out today, and I was
So you have the
on the
products, you
Sassafras
have the
River.
invoices and the products?
I do.
Great.
And I will provide copies to all of you guys and the press whenever I get back to a normal day in my office, which might be a while. Directional signage working group, trying to get more directional signage downtown was prominently mentioned in the task force report that we just discussed. And it was also a very prominent piece of feedback that we heard from the C2 business owners. And I kind of asked Case to look into this, and you guys are really super busy. I don't know if Case would still be amenable to putting together a small working group to study this, maybe a couple members of DCA, a couple members of GCI. And just the purpose of this working group would basically be to have folks walk around, maybe in conjunction with our staff, if you can make the time, to identify potential places in town where additional directional signage could be located, to determine a design for such signage that would be compatible with the HDC, and ideally say, all right, we want 10 signs, here's where they go, here's what we want to identify, and this is what we think it's going to cost, so that we can start trying to identify funding sources or possibly look at budget line items in our next fiscal year to address this.
I think you'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay, so I just want to bring that up again, because I want to keep that on the table so that we're responding to the feedback from these business forums, and it's not just information that's kind of coming and going without any results.
Well, don't forget the TAC money that's available.
That's true, that's a really good point.
I have that brochure someplace, but we can get that, and Bernadette didn't make any positive guarantees, but, and we're all wrapped up with the War of 1812 right now, but possible money from tourism.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of potential grant sources
Yeah.
that could help with this or even pay for it outright, but we need, just like the marina, we need the plan, we need to know what we're directing people towards, and we need a figure we need the cost. Otherwise, we're just kind of spinning our wheels. So when I say directional signage, I mean things like, we don't have a sign that directs people to the fact that we have a marina or a rail trail or really even a river. So
Parking.
those are just a couple examples. Parking is a big
That's
one of those. So I'll be pushing to get that working group set up and hopefully give them a time frame where they can come back and give us a report.
They should be conscious of the fact that if they post their signs on state highways,
Yes, right.
they have to be very careful that those people-
Agreed. I think we'd probably be focusing more on our town roads here. Fresh and Greens update. I just want to put this out there. I can't say too much because there's still things pending, but I have been maintaining fairly regular contact with Dennis Silicato, who's one of the owners of that, of Washington Plaza there. And it's a very bizarre situation. Fresh and Greens was basically owned by a Canadian hedge fund company. They were not grocers and evidently went into the grocery business almost like a venture capitalist initiative. And when it became apparent that they weren't very good at it, they pulled all their stores out of Maryland. And Dennis found out that Fresh and Greens was leaving Chestertown, not from Fresh and Greens, but from our very own Bill Ingersoll. And so he's been having a really difficult time because their lease runs through October of 2016. And he hasn't had a single person that he can talk to at Fresh and Greens that's high enough in the hedge fund that makes the decisions. But the breakthrough is that he informed me recently that he now does have a legitimate contact at Fresh and Greens. They are negotiating exit strategies for getting out of the lease, and he hoped to have a resolution on that within the next month, I'm going to say. And once that happens, then he will be free to entertain offers from potential tenants for that space. So that's all I can really say. There's been movement, and that's a good thing for us, and hopefully in the near future we'll have more to say about more movement on filling that space.
Good.
All right.
The other empty storefronts, what is he doing to get those filled up?
Well, there's a Rite Aid to the right of Fresh and Greens that he has, it used to be a Rite Aid.
Happy Areas.
Eckert.
Eckert, okay.
Eckert Drugs.
He has intentionally been keeping that vacant so that if another grocery store ever wanted to come in there and expand, much like Acme is doing, that he wanted that flexibility there. So that's that storefront. And I'm not aware of, are there more?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Louisa's is going to move.
Luis is moving. I haven't really asked him. Really, I've just talked to him mostly about Fresh and Greens because that's the anchor storefront. But
So my understanding.
he's a chatty guy. If you ever want to talk to him, just make sure you have like an hour on your schedule.
My understanding is meanwhile, Fresh and Greens is paying their rent, so he has.
That has been legally what has kind of handcuffed him from being able to
Right.
legitimately negotiate with
paying
anybody.
So he has his money
I guess
coming
you
in.
might not know this, are they paying their rent?
Yeah.
They have been obligating their lease thus far, which has further complicated the whole
If they
situation.
just didn't pay, then he could have trouble.
Yes, then he would have legal means to move of his own accord. So that's the latest update that I can give.
It's very frustrating because of all the
It is.
businesses people go into, everybody has to eat for crying out
Yeah.
loud. So they have to buy their groceries some places. You would think that would be something that they'd want to go into.
Yep. Community Parks and Playgrounds Program. This is pretty exciting. We all were familiar with the Chestertown Recreation Commission's efforts to have a baseball field built at the middle school. The process was interesting in that the Rec Commission basically designed a baseball field for this middle school. And I'll just, I think we can agree that we tentatively approved the design, but the Board of Ed had a lot of tweaks that they wanted to make to the design, felt like the project was being rushed, and basically decided to slow the whole process down. And when that was apparent that they didn't want to build the baseball field right away, I contacted Dr. Karen Couch, our superintendent, and said, hey, why don't we meet with the staff of the middle school And why don't you guys design your dream campus in terms of recreational amenities for your students? And perhaps the town could then cooperate with you to perhaps become a conduit for helping you get funding for looking at your campus comprehensively. And to that end, about 2 months ago, were you at that meeting, Bill?
I don't think the initial one.
I met with Dr. Couch, Janice Steffi, who's the principal at the middle school, and Lisa Oram, who is the vice principal at the middle school and has been a gym teacher in the county prior to that for decades. Was she your gym teacher?
Yep.
So that's a long time. And I basically made that pitch to them and said, hey, you know, I'm here to help. I like the idea of putting more recreation here because this is Chestertown and I'm the mayor. But furthermore, I know that if this gets done, it not only serves a lot of kids in Chestertown, it will immediately impact every single kid between the ages of 11 and 14 in the whole county, now that the county has one middle school. So they were excited and amenable to the idea and the process, and I said, look, try to design your dream campus, and if you could do it by mid-June, we might have a fighting chance of helping apply for a grant to get this funded. So they followed through. They talked to all of their staff. They came up with a design for a newly rehabilitated campus, which would involve a repaved and a rehabilitated tennis court. If you've been there recently, that is basically fallow with weeds growing out of it with no nets. It involves resurfacing and also regrading their basketball court, which, as someone who's played there, if you shoot a jumper on the downhill side of the court, you kind of fall back into the field because it's at a very steep slant. It would involve paving their exercise track and possibly putting exercise stations around it. It would involve the creation of multi-purpose fields in the large space inside the track. And it would potentially involve some greening initiatives, adding a few more trees, putting some stormwater retention areas in places like below the basketball court.
Would it include baseball?
And it would include a baseball field that would be scaled for middle school students. And the idea is that we would work with the Board of Ed, the county commissioners, and the town of Chestertown in an unprecedented partnership to apply for a community parks and playgrounds grant, which is a state program. And to get this grant, we would need what we call a joint use agreement, which basically means that during school hours, all of those amenities are the school's prerogative to use. And after hours, or perhaps during the summer months or during breaks, our citizens could use those amenities. So it's very, very exciting. We think if all the parties are on board, it could be a really compelling grant, because I think we may be the only county in the whole state with one middle school.
Right.
So they know that if they pay for this, the minute it's done, every middle school kid in our county will immediately have use for that. So I was supposed to meet with these guys today. Unfortunately, again, I was out on a kayak all day instead, so Bill went in my stead. But they discussed the plan. I don't know if you want to comment on any of the items.
They were pretty far along on their plan that Lisa had laid out what they want, and then so they laid out what they wanted, and they laid out the common areas, the public use areas that you just mentioned, as well as a sand volleyball court. And when I told them that we added some paved surfaces for those wet days where they really can't go out on the field that were near the gym, where kids throw lacrosse balls against it, and they said that was great because they're doing that on the basketball court now, and it's sort of, you know, they get in trouble with each other. So they were excited about it. The green areas appealed to them, clusters of trees. The kids can get under when it's hotter, and, you know, and also to reorient some of their fields, which are kid-sized this way, but could be used by the public for lacrosse fields or soccer fields the long way, spanning 2 or 3 of the fields. So they're really on board. I told them about the joint use agreement and you know, understanding that it would have to be a 20-year agreement or whatever the life cycle is of the amenities. And Dr. Couch couldn't have been nicer, and the whole thing, I think, is ready to go if you want it to go.
I think it's a Super idea.
Thank you.
Much as I love the baseball field,
Right.
this is better than the baseball.
It's better.
So much better.
'Cause
What-
we're not all baseball players,
Right.
so.
The timing of this grant is actually pretty tight. If we want to get a grant in this fiscal year, the due date is August 18th. So what Bill and Case will be doing is looking at the different amenities. Really, we're not really reinventing anything. What we're really doing is fixing up things that have been gone fallow over the last decade plus, and adding a few new areas. But really trying to get a cost estimate so that we can write this grant. And we also, I would like to kind of keep the public piece of it like we try to been do with all these new projects, which is to have some sort of public meeting, probably in late July, early August, where we present this plan and let local residents, parents, whoever wants to come comment on what we want to do, and so we can get some public
Will the
input.
Recreation Commission be involved in this at all, or has this project now
Well,
just
the-
superseded them?
I wanted it to come from the county because they own the land. It didn't make any sense for me to have us tell them what we want. And first, anyway. So yes, I mean, I think during that hearing would be a great time to make sure that they're all present.
Yeah.
But the design, I really want to come from the school system,
Right.
and the school in particular, and their faculty.
Well, in that case, what do we do about the Recreation Commission then?
That's a good question.
Sorry. You didn't see my email this afternoon if you were on the river, but I tried to work on that this week, but with the music festival and not having any internet, it's just,
I think the Recreation Commission is a discussion that we need to have internally. Do we want them to lead great activities like the Bocce League and think of things like a Fall Fest and have them be more activity-oriented? Or do we want them to be designing facilities for us? I personally, when I first heard that the Recreation Commission was restarted, thought it was the former rather than the latter, because when you start talking about designing facilities and putting price tags on them, we're the elected officials. We're the ones that do the money stuff. And to me, that seems more appropriate for us. I think they could serve in an advisory role and say, hey, look, this community is telling us that this is town-owned, or we know this is town-owned land. This community is asking us for these amenities. This would be a great idea. And then, you know, we're urging
take
you
it too
to,
far,
yeah. You know, and at that point, we work with engineers and people who do that
Right.
for a
And
living.
that still might be stretching it, because, I mean, the community could very well tell us, too. I mean, we're also...
Yes,
third
that's true.
Officials. I mean, I personally think it should just be activities, and that's it. I mean, there have just been too many complications, and, I mean, the commission's plan for the baseball field was fantastic, but, I mean, look how much better this comprehensive plan is. And I don't know, it seems like, there's simply been too many
I think his
complications with the
rush was
commission
to get it
itself.
done so he could be playing ball this summer.
Summer.
You know,
I agree.
he's worked in government, so he has to know government moves very slow.
It's frustrating,
could
it
I
is.
just come back to this ongoing meetings and so on? My one concern is looking at that field, you know, several times a day, every day as I go by, and your statements, you know, the baseball field has gone fallow. That track has been there 4 years and it's totally overgrown. I'm concerned about, we put all this effort in the ongoing maintenance.
That needs to be addressed.
So we need to be very, very clear about that before we invest.
I think the maintenance issues, I don't know what happened with the tennis court, but when you repave a tennis court or a basketball court, that's not a lot of maintenance after that. It was just concrete. I mean, so
We'd remove.
I'm cautiously optimistic, but yes, that needs to be carefully vetted through the whole process.
You know, when we got there was a sort of a fresh attitude there. They talked about the mowing, and they're getting a mower for the middle school so that the grounds, that they're not waiting for someone to bring a mower from somewhere else to mow it. To me, it just sounded like a big change in the wind direction.
I like the idea you're gonna plant a few trees too. It does look like a big open field.
It is.
So that's where that stands, and that's the latest update as of 3 o'clock this afternoon, and we'll keep everybody appraised. I wanted to just make a couple of comments that aren't on here. This was the first year that I attended a couple of concerts for the National Music Festival, and man, it's pretty awesome. It is a really neat event. They bring 150 musicians to town that live here for 2 weeks amongst our residents. Just that, just from waiting in line at Sam's at 1 o'clock, 10 deep behind a bunch of dudes holding saxophone cases and stuff. It really, and talking to a lot of the shop owners, especially downtown, and I'm not sure about the plazas, but I'm sure they have a similar ripple effect.
I was gone for most of the festival this year, but I can remember last year, I can remember sitting and playing against Sam's and people come in with violin cases, and I said, I hope there's violins in and not machine guns. They didn't look like Al Capone's guys coming in, so, but it was very nice to a lot of the places downtown, you could go in there and they'd be playing away.
Yes, so just to spread the word, the caliber of the musicianship is really amazing, considering that these are basically high school and college and like early graduate kids. College and undergrad, whatever. They're young musicians and they're awesome. So go see a show, and I'm going to be meeting with Laura Wade, who's their board chair, and Caitlin Patton, and just to talk about ways that we could help support next year's festival and help it grow organically. I have a couple of ideas, and hopefully when we get our new website up, we can maybe help do some cross-marketing with them. But I really think that is just such a great thing for the town, and I think it also has a lot of room to run in terms of...
The nice part about it is that they bought a house here, so they're planning on...
They're here. I asked Caitlin directly,
I
like...
that thing about 3 times, I think, before they got here.
I asked her directly, like, are you guys happy with Chestertown? And she said, oh yeah. So they couldn't be happier, and which is a great thing.
You warmed the cockles of my heart, Chris.
Yeah. So
we had a great season.
yes, you did.
Really a fantastic season. I was going to mention it in the ward report. It's been a wonderful 2 weeks. I'm still coming down.
Yeah, and those kids, I mean, they live. I don't know how many host families there are, but it's like 100.
Oh well, every single one of them was housed. Well,
Yeah.
Sorry, there were some in the
Some
dorms,
pair up and
but we had one of the mentors at our house, and it's just a great experience all around. And we're really getting well established now.
Yes.
Systems in place, and this is the 3rd full season here. Anybody who missed the Verdi Requiem at the high school last Saturday night with 328 musicians, that's singers came from 4 different chorales to do that. It was just amazing.
The nice thing about that too is, especially the young ones, Mama and Grandpa sometimes show up.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sometimes you wouldn't believe how many tickets were sold, even out of state, but out of Kent County.
Because
I see every single one of them.
His mother never came.
So the other thing just kind of segues into our website, and Sam asked if he could talk a little bit about the RFP. So I'm sorry for going off agenda here.
Here's the breakdown for everybody. Linda, I included your request for the setup fee and the maintenance on the spreadsheet itself, so you all can take a look.
Is this the same one you sent out?
Yes, with the addition.
Oh, so there's another column?
Yes.
Okay.
And here is their best website, and then also just a few comments as well, so you can just line this right up with the spreadsheet that you have currently. You want to pass those down. So, what I did was, I just took some of the main bullet points from the RFP itself and made those their own category, and essentially just put check marks next to the ones, next to the firms that, of course, demonstrated very clearly in their RFP that they met that requirement. Within budget is a pretty obvious one. We aimed for $20,000 for the initial setup or the initial redesign of the website. Then there's also demonstrated experience. This one, of course, is purely based on my perspective, just reading their material, navigating to the websites that they had listed, and essentially, in order to get that check, your websites they had to look professional. And of course, the ones that don't either didn't list some of the sites that they've worked on previously, or the websites did meet my criteria of being professional. So of course, most of these companies have that check next to them. Now, innovative is something that is really based on just how contemporary their websites looked. There are a lot of companies who had websites that looked like Chestertown's current website. That's just not going to cut it. So if the firm was showing a website that was very contemporary and just it had clean edges, bold pictures, you know, a really good use of color and utilizing that white space. It had the social media embedded into the sites as well. I mean, that is what earned them an innovative check. Now, when it comes to easily updated, that was based primarily on the content management system that each company said that they were going to use. And I based that on the site being designed from a WordPress module. And I think WordPress is going to be the easiest way to manage the Chestertown website. That gives our staff a great ability to just go in personally and make some of those edits. The companies that don't have that check, they have their own content management system that they were going to implement, and that will require a lot of training. And I felt more comfortable going towards a WordPress platform. The user interface is very straightforward on our part, and you can just do so many things with it. And also, 17% of websites today are run from WordPress, so that certainly goes to show how popular it is. And then, of course, social media. There were some firms that mentioned that they would integrate social media into the website, but they didn't specifically say that they could also manage our social media pages. And I think that's a very clear distinction, primarily because managing a social media page takes time, and it's all content driven. We're all, of course, very busy, and it takes somebody very creative to be able to utilize social media effectively. So in the RFP, it had to clearly state that that firm would manage our social media pages as well. Portable is reference to being on a mobile device or an iPad, so the firms that clearly state in our RFP that they have mobile experience and that they are going to create our new website to make it so that it's easily viewed on a cell phone or an iPad, receive that check mark. And this 2-hour driving distance, this kind of helped just to separate the crowd in terms of the firms that were relatively close to home and then the ones that were quite distant. We had a few RFPs from companies based in California. We had a couple in the Midwest. So what this does is just shows all the firms that are pretty close to home. So we've had bids from California all the way to Still Pond and everything in between. So, and then of course the October launch. This isn't as relevant, primarily because it really does take time to develop a good product. So that's why this is towards the end. But this just kind of helps to flesh things out a little bit to show you what companies will be able to deliver a product pretty quickly and efficiently, and others that would, of course, take a little bit more time. The ones that don't have that check mark, in the comments section, I have that when their initial launch period would be. So, you know, based on, you know, doing this very thorough breakdown, there are 2 companies that clearly stood out. Most firms average between 3 or 4 check marks, but Ignition 72, they're based in Baltimore, they earned 5 check marks, and they are within budget. And then Moo Productions, based in Still Pond, earned 6 check marks. And so just based on that, Moo Productions earned the most check marks. Francois Sullivan, she works with the DCA, also redesigned the Sultana education website. So a lot of experience with companies here in Chestertown, And one thing that really stood out was that she specifically said that her company could manage the social media pages for us, and that's very, very important, because it takes a lot of work off our hands. So honestly, based on this information and based on the setup fee, and then of course the ongoing maintenance fee thereafter, I think we do have enough information to issue this RFP.
To issue the,
Contract.
To issue the contract, excuse me.
You're talking about social media. Now, this has to be a government website,
Yep.
a work website to exchange information, in between people in the
Absolutely.
town, county, or wherever they're looking on it, as far as, I had suggested payments. We only have water bills. Do we have fees for permits and I meant to write down the fees that the county charges. They're in your elevator. I've been up when I go up to the Office of Tourism,
A
the
fee
fees.
for riding your elevator?
No.
Only for town officials.
The fees there's a sign in the elevator for the fees for payments online.
Yes.
And every time I forget to write it down. But anyway, it's a courtesy fee and for your permits and things like that, so.
We set that up so that it was actually revenue neutral, so that the user of that, we wouldn't be paying the credit card charge.
That's right.
Right.
Well, I know that Moo Productions does the website for the Garfield Center for the Arts, where
That's
I
still
used,
not a government website.
where I used to
That's what I'm
work,
concerned.
and handles the marketplace for payment for tickets, for reservations, and the like, so.
Right.
I know they have that capability to set up, an online marketplace.
Right.
I'm intrigued, and just a little side note, why would anybody name their company Jesse James? Either they don't know history or that happens to be their real name, but it just seems strange.
Must be the one in the west.
Gosh, they didn't get very many checks.
And we haven't not everybody's had a chance to look at the responses to the RFPs, because I can't remember, $6,000 sticks in my mind, and it might be this Vision Internet that I was impressed with some of the pictures that they had in their booklet that were government-oriented, because I remember it had potholes. It had the pothole, but I'm not sure whether that's the one or not.
They didn't get too many points otherwise.
Huh?
It has a lot of things.
Nothing.
No, but I think we should all look at these, because it's more than just pictures of Chestertown that our residents need to be able to access online for the convenience that everybody's looking for today.
Well, I mean, it's honestly, everything that is on the current site can easily be migrated or recreated on the new site that eventually gets built out. So, I mean, we're not talking about extensive databases that need to be transferred or complex information that needs to be delivered. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a straightforward process. I'm simply saying all of these firms certainly have the capability of making sure that any information that a particular citizen or resident needs will be accessible on the new site.
So all the ordinances, for example, I searched ordinances today
And
on a topic,
and all of that is text-based. That's
Yeah.
easy.
minutes.
That's easy.
yeah, I
So-
mean, you
That's
just
all
have
it's
a
done.
button that says government, and then you have a drop-down menu,
Makes sense.
ordinances,
Right.
Yeah.
hearings, minutes.
And I mean,
It's really not that
one
complicated.
critical thing was that everything be searchable, and the way that these sites can be structured, I mean, it will be very easy, and especially with all the text that we have on the current website with the ordinance, the minutes and things like that. I mean, it's a very simple matter to add a search box, and the resident just type in whatever it is that they're looking for. I mean, you all are certainly more than welcome to look at the RFPs, but there are 21, it's hundreds of pages of information. It's really going to bog the process down, quite frankly.
Well, I mean, we can take the top 5. Except I would really, and then just like I said, I just remember it was $6,000, so I want to revisit this Vision Internet.
But it wasn't within budget according to Sam's checkpoints there.
Well, then maybe it wasn't,
What is the
I
length
don't
of the
remember, I'd have to look
contract?
through the books. I can remember the pictures.
3 years.
3 years.
So, I mean, I'm quite
All of
frankly...
them were 3 years?
Yeah.
That was another question.
Is there any question that, and the commissioners either maybe can answer it, but I understand they moved their site inside or something.
In-house,
Does this
yeah.
meeting you're having have anything to do with your website? Or
No.
Okay, that takes care of that.
It really has to deal with internet access for governmental uses.
I appreciate that. I didn't know whether that was something you were gonna do with us.
And the website, I want to say, the one that you were looking at was one of the civic ones, I can't remember.
One of the what?
One of the civic,
The two civic.
I can't remember.
I mean,
You
they
know
had,
what? Wait a minute, I know. If I've got my notes here from when we opened the bids.
but if I'm not mistaken, that was also the company that had over 1,600 clients. And I certainly don't want to be lost in the crowd.
They're doing the Banff Canada website?
Did I hear you right? Moon Production is in Stillwater.
Right.
Yeah, well, we can physically go get them if they don't want a problem.
Quite frankly. And a lot of the residents have expressed that, you know, they certainly would like to see this go to a local company preferably. So, but, you know, even with Ignition, they're still not too far away over in Baltimore.
Well, we gotta figure out what we wanna do, guys.
I would ask for some more time. We have not been satisfied with the current website, and you have not looked, you and Marty, as far as I know, haven't looked at any of the responses to the RFPs. We've got all the books. I'd like to look at them again. And
I have actually looked.
I don't want to, I just want to look. I don't want it to end up being the same thing that we've had.
All right, can we
Me.
make a decision at our next meeting?
Oh, please.
I think that's planned.
And I don't
We've got
think
2
we should
weeks.
hold inability to meet an October launch date against any applicant if we delay this any longer.
Okay, so why don't we, I think it's pretty clear that Sam feels like these two companies, Ignition and Mood Productions, are, I think, if you had to give a recommendation, you'd probably, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I based on my breakdown, I would choose, of course, New Production. But I brought in both Ignition and Move for whomever wants to take a look and...
Linda, I'm going to go with his expertise because quite frankly, I have no
I'd rather-
expertise.
Look at a lot of websites. I'd rather have some more time to look.
11-year-old granddaughter to straighten me out on the computer, so
We just got this yesterday, and I haven't had a chance.
All right, well, let's, we'll take Sam's recommendations to heart. I agree, he does have a lot of expertise and definitely done a lot of work. Thank you very much for putting this together. And so why don't we take it to...
Are all the proposals in a file in the office that we can come in and look at?
It's a set on my desk.
And I have a stack as well, so Linda, you can have a stack, you can have a stack as well.
I mean, to look
I don't
even
want
at the ones,
all
I
of them.
I scored them all out based on yours, and there's like 4, 8, 9 that got a 4. And you add the 2 that we're talking about, that's 11.
Right.
You know, I think certainly anybody who got 1, 2, or 3, they either didn't submit a serious proposal or they're just weak.
Who's the low bidder, Sam?
The lowest out of all 21?
Yeah.
Looks like Gov Office.
Gov Office with, at 7,000.
Okay, well, who's the low bidder are the ones that got the highest number of X's in the tabulation?
Move Production at 16,000.
I agree with Linda that there's no harm in deciding this in July, but I think, you know, our default thing is, if they're close, we pick the low bidder if
Yeah.
we can.
And the local.
Local was important in the RFP, it was mentioned, but I don't think you would preclude anybody, that wouldn't be fair in this electronic age.
All right, look, let's take 2 weeks and make a decision at our next meeting.
Okay.
All right? That's what we're gonna do. Okay. Ward reports. Marty Stetson.
Thank you. I'm going to take a little bit of my time and talk about the conference that I went to. I had two firsts. The first is I got to carry the Chestertown flag in the Mabel Mumford did that for, well, she was there for 32 years, and whether they did that for 32 years, she was there for the 6 years prior to me doing it, and it was a nice little honor, and that was the first day, and later we had a keynote speak by Cal Ripken, which was really super. I mean, he did a great job. It was some humor, but it also had some very salient points for you. And the second day, the second thing that was new to me, I was a presenter at a morning session on election reporting and election financial responsibility and so forth. Tom Yeager asked me to sit in on that. He was heading it up along with the town clerk from Annapolis, I think. And the interesting part, Tom said, well, it's 8:30 in the morning, there probably won't be but 8 or 10 people there. We had over 100 people.
Wow, that's amazing.
And they asked a lot of questions, and I thought it really went
About the
well.
ordinance that we passed?
Pardon?
About the ordinance that?
Right. Yeah. I meant to mention you, but I took all the credit myself. And the third day, the most interesting session I went to was one on walkable and bikeable, which is Wednesday morning. Walkable, bikeable communities. And they had some very interesting points. Of course, some of them have some really nice trails go through. The ones in Western Maryland have, I don't know if anybody knows it, but you can now get on a bike and ride from Washington to Pittsburgh on the trail.
Wow.
But they were talking about how much economical impact it has made on their town. And they did studies, and I think people who spend the night spend $70-some. People who spend just a day spend $13. The community themselves are really embracing them. And Frederick is trying to make their whole town bikeable. And a little side note to that is that I spent a week out in Denver, and have for the last 20 years or so. That's the most healthy state in the union, and they have paths everywhere. You go to a small town, and there'll be a trail out there. My daughter lives right in the town of Denver, and within quarter of a mile, eighth of a mile, there's 2 or 3 trails that you can get on. So they really do believe, and they're used. I was out at different times of the day. People of different ages, from 8 years old to 80 years old, were using those trails. So, and that's what makes them healthy. So I would, and here's the point for the people who, in the beginning, objected to the trail. The average increase of your property, if it backs up to a trail, is 11%. That's the average. Some people get more of a bump in their value of their house. So there is value. It's like living next to a park. So.
Right.
And finally, we're still getting donations for the dog park, and I'm very happy to hear that. We've got a bench was donated, and it's been ordered, and it'll be in. And of course, then I'll get a couple of benches from the town. I have an incentive that I'm working on where I'm going to try and raise a good bit of money and put something really nice in it, but I'm not ready to talk about that yet. But things are moving along on the 4th Ward, and I appreciate Bill getting all of our potholes filled. Because that was some of my phone calls were potholes.
There's still potholes.
That's 4th Ward.
All right, Sam.
I was also at the ML convention, and you know, it was funny, leading up to the convention, everybody's like, oh, it's going to be in Ocean City, it's going to be so much fun, this and that. And what they failed to tell me was you're going to be in sessions all day, every day. I thought I would have just a little bit more time to go to the beach, but no, not at all. But the session, it was good. I couldn't sit in on the more exciting
I look for you,
topics.
Sam. I can understand.
But I was in all of the core topics, so the Public Information Act, the Open Meetings Act, all of the sessions dealing with the fine print of being a public official, if you will. And as I was sitting in those, it just made me really, really grateful for our gens and our bills and our cases, because a lot of that information was really pertaining to those communities where it's really small. The local official, especially the mayor, does a lot of the work. And as I was sitting there, I was just like, a lot of this stuff are things that we as a council should definitely be mindful of, but don't have to be overly concerned about because of our full-time staff members. So it was really interesting being in those meetings and just learning about all of the other stuff that goes with being in the public eye. So the convention went well. And then we are, as Chief Baker mentioned earlier, we have a community meeting with the Calvert Street delegation again tomorrow, and we are going to be talking about, or at least trying to come to a general consensus as to what to do with the alleyway, what to do with basketball. Hope Clark from Diversity Dialogue is also going to be there to get further or final consensus about the garden that they plan on planting there. And Janie, a resident of Calvert Street, Janie Barrett, she let me know that the community has organized all of the youth in the neighborhood, and they got them t-shirts. They also get a small stipend, and those kids are going to clean up the neighborhood. So they're going to get together, and once a week, once every couple of weeks, however many times it takes, but they're just going to walk around and pick up trash, and the kids are going to be directly involved in beautifying their neighborhood.
That's great.
So that was just really, really fantastic to hear. So Chris, myself, Chief Baker will be at the meeting tomorrow, and I will certainly fill you in on how that meeting goes. And then one final note, again, potholes, Radcliffe Trailer Park. Would it be possible for the town to get that paved and just send the bill to the owner?
That's a big time bill.
Well, I mean, he would have to pay it regardless to keep
I
his...
hate to be speechless, but we've been down this road.
I've never seen that
We've been
before.
down this road before. We did this before, when the bank was in control of it. We'll listen to any property owner who's having a problem, but we're going to make sure that the taxpayers reimbursed, especially if we're doing it in-house. I mean, I know what you're talking about. The roads are probably rough and not in a speed controlling type of way, but I do want to have a dialogue with the owner about it before we step in and pave it, because that's tens of thousands of dollars for asphalting it or whatever. And before you tar and chip it, you still have to make substantial corrections to the potholes. Case has been working on this. I'll find out from him tomorrow and we'll email you back about it. I know it's your concern, because there's 21 trailers, I think, that are occupied there. So it is a community in a way. It's a privately owned one, and we've stepped in before, but it's clear-eyed. We stepped in and they were fully aware that we were going to be reimbursed. So if we were currently paving, sometimes we can take millings or tailings from projects and put them in the potholes, and it's a win-win.
Right.
So I might check with Bramble to see if there's any millings that they can bring from the roundabout job or whatever and help us out. We also have used crushed concrete before for potholes, and it's very effective on those types of roads, just as good as pressure run.
Yeah. Well, let me know how that goes. I mean, I drive past it several times every single day, and it's very disheartening seeing everything else patched up and fixed. And then as soon as you turn into that neighborhood, it's just like
just
Okay, sure,
craters.
board, and we'll follow up. I do know who the owner is, I recall. He owns a trailer park at the top end of Cannon Street also.
Okay.
Okay?
So, that's it for me.
Okay, Linda.
Liz, you want to go next, please?
Okay. Well, several of the things I wanted to raise, vehicular noise, Fresh and Green, thank you for addressing that, because I had an inquiry from a resident about that, and the music festival. I'm sorry I couldn't go to Ocean City for the Maryland Municipal League Convention, because I hope they're going to go back to the traditional dates next year, but the conflict with the music festival is just
It really wasn't.
impossible for
For
me.
instance, Cal Ripken's talk would have been really loved by kids, but there wasn't that many kids there because they were still in school, so.
Anyway, I was sorry to miss it, but it was unavoidable. Speaking of potholes, there's a deep one that's opened up at the corner of Kent and Philosopher's Terrace
I know.
in the
I
last
saw it.
little while.
Yep, saw it last
I've
week.
hit it myself at least once. Now I know it's there. It's hard to avoid it. And is there any action on the path to the Margot Bailey Park from Heron Point? Keep getting asked about that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's still the situation where we're going there next.
Okay.
We're still, you can follow our progress every day if you like, at the yard, which I have to admit, if you haven't been there and seen what we're doing in-house with the parking lot on Cannon Street.
I haven't been
I wish you
for
would.
maybe 3 or 4 weeks. I checked it out a while back.
Our mason crew's doing that, and Mr. Bramble is going to bring a grader in. As you know, he's storing stuff for the roundabout on the Gateway Park. And in return, he's done a few things, and one of which is going to be send a grader operator down there to smooth the stone we've put down from front to back, at no charge.
When is the GAR opening on the 21st, you said?
It's 21st, but I don't remember the time.
At 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock?
The festival is 10 to 6.
Could I just add one more thing?
I guess so.
No, you had your turn.
Okay. This is for you, Joe. When I carried the flag, they asked me, what would you like to say about your town? And at first I was going to say, well, it's a colonial town, but there's lots of colonial towns. I wanted something that was unique, and I said it's the home of Washington College. So you've got a boost for several hundred people there. And I actually had a lady come up and was so happy. She said, I just wanted to tell you, my daughter's going there next year.
All right. Okay.
Okay, I have a long list for some reason. We have the War of 1812 has a fundraiser on June 28th, which is a fundraiser at Hawks Field House, which is near the Hawks Field Monument on Tulip Forest Farm. So that is a fundraiser on the 28th. We have any Ravens or Chargers fans? I have chances for $10 each for 2 tickets to the Ravens and Chargers game on November 30th on the 30-yard line, and a parking pass for $10. This is part of our trying to raise money for the cash match for the grant. And let's see, then the GAR opening on Saturday, the 21st. Also have, and I apologize, Poor Richard's opened several weeks ago downtown, which is an antique store, and I forgot about that the past couple meetings, but Saturday night, Coco's Pet Store opened, which is a boutique on High Street, which is in between Blooming Wild and the Christian bookstore. So we have a section there that's occupied now, and the Humane Society was there with some of their kittens, and it was a nice gathering Saturday night. Now, I was kind of hoping that you would have the nuisance ordinance and the fines for tenants and landlords finalized by this meeting.
Don't.
You don't?
Because
Okay,
because I think it's, Jen and I have been working on the chronic nuisance. I think it's more of a chronic nuisance than a noise ordinance.
Okay.
Brought up last time because the fine that you mentioned the $500 fine, it's not in the noise, it's in the
Okay.
chronic.
Okay.
And if we could talk a
it's-
little bit more about what specifically, I think you're talking about noise and parties and things like that, and
Right.
that litter that goes outside with that.
And the destruction of adjoining properties.
We'll have that for the-
And vehicles, and privately owned vehicles.
We'll have that ready for July,
Okay,
but we're
that'll
in
be
between,
fine.
we're in between two different ordinances and trying to scratch this itch.
That will be fine. As far as FOIA requests go, I attended the Public Information Act training this time, and for FOIA requests, do we charge for FOIA requests? Do we,
After 2 hours.
yeah, you
We
can't
do.
charge for the first
We
2 hours?
we don't.
You don't?
We charge after that. We keep
What
track
do
of
you,
it.
what are your charges?
Oh, they depend on who's doing the work.
So it varies, you don't have anything set in stone, or do you have it by, if cases?
We have it
doing
for
or-
copies. Yeah, well, some FOIA requests are easy, some are brutal. If somebody says, I like everything going back to 1975 on, and we've had stuff like that.
So how much per page do you charge?
25 cents?
I think it's 25 cents.
Really, I'd be better prepared if you let me know your
Okay,
questions in
not a
advance.
problem.
But if,
I'll
for
bring it up
example,
again.
if the bookkeeper is preparing a response and it's questions about that, then we would be charging at her rate of pay.
Okay,
If Jen's
I
doing it-
wasn't aware of that.
But we're pretty permissive. I mean, we go a long way before we start charging, and we sort of give everybody a chance to show us that this isn't going to be a regular thing. But not that it couldn't be, but, so the first one's kind of free.
Okay, so can I get a list of charges per?
Are you going to file a FOIA request? Because you'd be free.
I know, no, I just wanted
I
to
can
see
give
whether
you,
we
I can give you the copies.
are
and-
actually charging. And,
Oh, by the way, if you want to see a FOIA request, then I'll get you an example of the last time we charged.
Okay.
That would be a true indication of what we charged.
okay, and your request has to be in writing?
Yeah, we require, we accept emails, and we really love FOIA requests, by the way. We'd like to have more. We do make sure that they're either an email or in writing, and we have 30 days to answer. And we try to get an answer like, hey, this is voluminous, so it's going to take us a little while, and if we know that it's going to take a lot of hours, we tell them this is probably going to take us 8 hours over the 2 that you get free.
Okay. Okay, and then attorney's fees? Do they ever go to attorneys?
No, it
Okay.
shouldn't unless we have to ask our attorney, do we really have to fill out this FOIA
Okay,
request?
all right. I just wanted
I know.
to check and see whether you did have set fees or not. I wasn't aware of that. Okay. I would like to introduce this tonight and possibly give everybody a chance to get some feedback on this. I would like each rental property, not each unit, but each piece of rental property, property owner to have to pay a license fee. And $5, I'm just, not for a moneymaker for the town, $5 a month or $60 a year for a license to rent property. And I'm making a further suggestion that if this is passed, that the revenue go totally to our fire department. Just think about it. I'm not bringing this up for it to be a revenue source for the town. Our fire department
You're bringing it
is...
up for a revenue source for the fire department.
Yes. Now, because they've had to buy a new piece of equipment, which is $1.2 million. I know that there are some towns that have started a license and a charge for it, for rental properties, and they've used it for the town, for, revenue source for the town. But think about it. That's all I'm asking. Okay, a workshop for the sign ordinance. I think before you were sworn in was last year, right? When we had the meeting with all of the businesses and their requests and their letters. Never followed up on that. So I would like to start some workshops with all of the businesses in Chestertown and address the sign ordinance, but I would also like the planning commission to be at these meetings so that they can hear. And the reason why I'm doing this, we have, it just, I don't know, it just really aggravates me when I have a business downtown and the property owner wants the signs, more than one storefront in one building. And the property owner wants the signs to be uniform across the building, and then the business owner is told, well, I think it would look better if it were here. As a matter of fact, I've been on overload with this for the past couple of weeks that I think it would look better. I would like to see, you know, all of these I from somebody who is serving at the pleasure of the mayor and council or on a commission that is appointed by the mayor and council to interject their own personal thoughts. And we've ended up with plastic banners on the businesses. It's like, why fight over where the sign should be, whether it should be here or 6 inches back? And so we've got a series of plastic banners in town now, and they don't seem to be, you know, harassed because they've got the plastic banners in front of their stores. You know, it just, every business came to a town meeting, they had letters, they had suggestions, and nothing's ever happened. So I would like the Planning Commission, the Historic District Commission, and all of our businesses to be invited to a revised sign ordinance workshop, a workshop. Just like we're, you know, having the C2s, C3s, and this, that, and the other. It's past time that we do this because, and I didn't know this when we had the C2 meeting that night, but because one of our businesses in town, she hasn't gone out of business, but she stopped renting the space that she was in because she couldn't have a sign and she couldn't attract people to that spot on Cannon Street. She hasn't gone out of business, but she gave up.
What do you mean she couldn't have a sign?
She was told she couldn't have a sign because she wanted a shingle because but she couldn't have it because the building had a porch. And so she couldn't attract people to that location. So she said, well, why do I rent this space? You know, she hasn't given up her business, but she's given up that location. We really need to do something.
My memory of that meeting, because I came to it back in, I think it was September 16th, was that there was an agreement to establish a working group to look at the whole sign issue, and that's never happened.
No, it kind of just went, you know, probably because, what month was it?
We're having
Do you
so many
remember?
meetings.
I know that it got to the point where it was left for the new mayor and
I
council.
don't know where you would have squeezed that in. I know. I
There
recommended
probably wasn't any, so
myself
we're bringing it back up again.
that we look at reforming the sign ordinance. I've said that publicly.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been done since 1983, but the way it was done then is the right way. You know, the Planning Commission, the Historic Commission, they both rule over signs. The zoning administrator who also sees signs, plus the merchants.
So let's
The
get
people-
everybody together again in
I think we'll hear the same
2014.
things we heard at the last meeting. We can,
Yes, but-
are there minutes of that meeting, Jen? There must be.
But the Planning Commission wasn't there, and the Historic District Commission wasn't there.
There were certainly people from both of those organizations there.
It's time. It's 2014.
But what needs to happen is, it needs to be The point, I came to that
I did.
hearing as a planning commission member, but
Right.
it wasn't like an official planning commission thing. It was,
No, it
people
wasn't.
just came and
Right.
talked to the council. But it really should be, I think, hosted by the planning commission and the HDC.
Okay,
Because they're ultimately the one, I mean, we're ultimately the ones that have the final say, but they're the ones that deal with it constantly when projects are coming
and
in.
they're appointed by the mayor and council.
Right.
And we're the
So-
ones that have to pass the ordinance. It'll be a town
They're-
ordinance.
They're appointed by you guys, but they're autonomous, and they need to be involved at the initial steps.
Right.
And they need to hear what's not working for
Right.
people.
So, and I, you know,
I would like to see the planning commission and the HDC run that hearing and then make recommendations back to
well,
us.
can we make a formal recommendation to those two commissions?
Yeah.
That we have, because everybody who belongs to the DCA, they're on the email list, so I mean, that's not a problem with that. It will be incorporating everybody in town.
The thing that's tricky is signage for somebody at Camp Plaza and signage for somebody on High Street. To me, those aren't the same things at all.
It's not, they're not the same things, but they still go through the same stress.
I agree,
about-
but if you have everybody at one meeting to try to,
Well, then, so, do them the zones, C3.
yeah, I think that makes more
C2.
sense.
But our current zoning ordinance doesn't differentiate between different areas of
Yes, it
town.
does.
I mean, not zoning ordinance, does current signage.
Yes,
That signage is
it does.
different.
It does. Every district is different, even in the current one.
Yeah.
C1 and C2 are worlds apart. C2 is very restrictive, it's downtown, it's historic, and it has one other level review, and that's Historic District Commission. And they have a book that's called, design guidelines, that includes signs. And that's where the toughest, that's where the most,
That's
unhappiness sort of is. And So-
I remember the lady came in here from the historic district that wanted to do something with a sign. She said, "You're living in the past." I said, "If you live in the historical section, you are in the past. That's what we're trying to create."
No, I disagree with that, Marnie, I have to say.
Okay, moving on.
Wait. Let's figure out, let's decide something.
Okay.
So do you want me to make a formal
I would-
request to those
yes,
two
please.
commissions to have a sign ordinance
Yes.
hearing?
Yes,
For-
Or
to begin the
meeting?
process
yeah,
of
upstairs.
For
and
which
Well,
area?
we'll have to,
I will email, well, the HDC would only have to be involved with the C2
C2.
area. And then C1 and C3 are pretty similar, so you think they could be in one
Yes,
meeting?
they could.
So like,
They
it'd be
could.
like two separate.
I don't think you'll find as many complaints in C1 and C3 as you'll get in C2. And
Yeah.
that should be, that's where, if I recall correctly, the previous council said, whoa, time out on, we're not settling the GAR request for LED signage. We're gonna let the new council do that, because it was getting late in their.
What happened is it got kicked down the road because of the election.
There you go.
To be
I was trying to
totally
say it
frank.
in a different way. But it has to be dealt with. I mean, it's
So now it's after the election and we'll try to deal with it. So I will formally ask the chairman of those two commissions to meet with the C2 vendors, merchants, whatever you want to
well,
call them.
make it a public meeting.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And then have a separate sign ordinance meeting where we'll request the presence of folks in C1 and C3, which is basically the shopping centers,
Upright.
Washington Avenue and High Street extended.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, next is, I had a complaint that, let's see, the meetings have not been on the YouTube for 8 weeks. They started October 24th, 2013, and the last meeting on YouTube is April 21st, 2014. And if you go on, it's Chester is one word and town is another word. So, any
I don't put them on.
James would be the one that would know.
YouTube won't allow you to use just a first name or a last name, and that's the reason for that. I'm not sure why they aren't making it up, because normally what I do is after I post it on the public access station, I begin to upload them. And I don't know why the first couple would have worked. Do the computers here go shut down like at a certain time?
But the last meeting on YouTube is April 21st.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go back and rewatch them.
So there's 3 meetings missing.
Yeah. Okay,
No, I still have them, they're on the hard drive.
okay.
Is there a maximum that you can have, or they want us to remove earlier ones?
I'm just thinking like maybe the computer shuts itself down while it's uploading, because I start the upload and then I go home because I don't want to.
Oh, you mean ours here? Unless there's a power failure, it shouldn't, but I'll sit there the whole time and see, okay?
Maybe the file's too big.
Some Friday night or Saturday night when I don't have anything else to do.
We talked to them.
And let's see, that the notice, the public notice, I didn't write all of this down, for the I think it was in the minutes, for Shore Regional Meeting. It doesn't say what the meeting is about. It doesn't say that it's the oil cleanup. I'm just.
It is in the paper.
It's in the paper?
Website.
Okay, all right. No, it was in the tonight's agenda,
It's the
I guess.
hospitals.
Yes, it's the hospital's meeting.
Okay.
It's not
We ran the ad, and I do have it on the website, but I'm only allowed so many
Okay.
characters, so I can't.
Didn't it say
Okay.
oral remediation plan, though?
No, it just said the one on the what I put up on the website just said meeting with Shore Regional Health for Wednesday night, but the public notice that is in the paper has all the details.
Okay, good, thanks.
Yeah.
And I told Bill, but the step pools are working.
Good.
And actually, the grass is growing.
Yeah, they look
Trees
great.
are leafing
I
out.
know, it's, now, let's see, next thing. Satterfield Court. I had a resident of Satterfield Court come up to me Saturday at the Heritage Celebration, and she said the rumor is that they all have to move and nobody knows what's going on. I'm just passing it along. Nobody knows what's going on.
A letter's being sent out to all
Okay.
residents, and I've spoken to all the residents and assured them
Okay.
that their tenancy is perfectly fine.
And there's a sofa and a mattress on the corner of Cannon and College Avenue. I think it's College Avenue, where Miss Biddle used to live.
College,
Biddle's
that's
mother.
right, that's right.
Okay.
Cannon College.
And nobody said anything about the fire in Ward 3 and the 2 families that have been displaced.
What's that?
The whole house was destroyed.
Where?
I can't, on Cannon.
When was this?
I'm done talking, Linda. You've lost the whole audience here.
Yeah, well.
When
I'm
was this
just-
fire?
Ward 3?
Sunday,
On Cannon Street?
yeah.
500 block of Cannon Street.
Really? When? What, this week? Yesterday? Didn't-
Jeff Sutton's house. So 2 families were displaced. That's it, that's the end of.
Don't you want an executive session?
Oh, yes,
Make a
yes.
request for.
I didn't see it on the agenda. Wait a
We
minute, I have it right
didn't have
here.
time, you just asked us today, you said you wanted it today.
Under 10-508 of the annotated code of the state of Maryland, I request an executive session following this meeting.
On two,
Two.
one's personnel, and one's legal, right?
Right.
All right, do we have to make a motion on that, or?
Yeah.
Well, that was.
She made
that
the
was
motion, somebody needs a second.
Needs a second.
Is there a second?
I don't know enough about it.
I sent the email,
Well, you just said
I've-
you wanted a session, and that
but
was,
this isn't the first time I've asked for an executive session on the same issues.
I need more background information.
So what if nobody seconds it?
I really don't know. It usually just gets seconded. There's never any controversy about having an executive session.
Why do all these things have to happen on my watch all the time?
Well, let's not set a precedent.
Well.
Second.
All right,
All right, all those in favor?
I'll find out what it's about if that's the only way I can find out.
Any opposed? All right, so,
I don't care, quite frankly.
So it was on personnel was the one
And legal.
and legal.
all right, so
You
then,
have to give a reason. What is your reason?
Personnel
Personnel
and legal.
and obtain
Personnel?
advice on a legal matter.
all right. Are you finished, Linda?
Yes,
Then I
yes.
move we
Okay.
adjourn the open meeting of the
Well, wait a
mayor and
minute.
council.
There's, apparently there's no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait a minute, there's apparently no request from the public to be on the agenda, is that correct? Are there any questions or comments from the audience?
Such as it is now.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the
I
meeting?
move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Did I miss
Or
something?
there is a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Falling out of my
Any opposed?
I didn't know whether you brought
All
it
right, the meeting's adjourned.
up. Yeah, I know it's open, I didn't know whether you might have brought it up. Where's Bill?
Peter, I'll give you a ride, but I don't know how long we're gonna be.
I'll be